Today we are talking about the seduction of induction. My guest is Lisa Garten.
Yes.
And how it happens a lot. In fact, it's very frequent. About, I would say, no, this is not a number I got from any of the hospitals, but I would say about 80% of women are induced any given day.
Just in practice, and I would say from the stories that I hear, I would be about that too.
And I think that mostly it happens because as moms, we are not informed. We don't get to hear about that. If you've taken a class at a hospital, I don't remember being told about the dangers of Pitocin, the risks versus the benefits of Pitocin, and when it would be an okay time to get Pitocin.
Definitely. I would like to share a little brief story, though, when we're talking about what are real numbers. This time of year is a precarious time of year because of all the holidays. We see a huge increase in induction. So yes, I understand the seduction of induction and the feelings of being way pregnant. My last one was born on December 20th, 6 years ago. And the day that I gave birth, there were 13 babies born during that day shift, which is a lot of babies.
That's a lot of babies.
There were 13 babies born. 11 of those babies were born by cesarean. Only 2 of those babies were pushed out. Mine and another woman that was having her 4th child. So that's and how do I know this? Because 2 nurses told me. That's how I know this. So that's a very real number. And when I asked why, I go, were these repeat sections? Were people in trouble? And one of the nurses looked at me and said, no, most of them were failed inductions.
Failed inductions?
Failed inductions. That means we tried to jumpstart your labor, and either you failed to progress, you did not dilate as expected, or we gave you so much stuff trying to get that labor cooking and trying to get that cervix opened that we distressed your baby and you had emergency cesarean due to fetal distress, which is one of the risk factors of using things that cause contractions.
I think every pregnant mom should go out and get this movie. It's called The Business of Being Born. In the movie, they talk about a cascade of intervention. And essentially, it's you go into the hospital, you get given Pitocin, the contractions made by the Pitocin are so intense and so overwhelming that you have to have an epidural. So you have the epidural, but then the epidural slows everything down, so you have to have more Pitocin. So like you can't feel what's happening to inside of you, your baby can.
Baby totally can. Junior doesn't get an epidural.
Right. So your baby is getting squeezed. The baby's having a really hard time coping during these really hard, longer and stronger contractions caused by the Pitocin that it would never have to have dealt with during a normal birth. And then your baby's showing signs of distress. So, oh my gosh, it looks like we're going to have to do an emergency C-section. And aren't you so glad that you were here in the hospital so we could do this for you?
And, you know, I hear that story frequently. It's like, oh, well, my baby was in massive distress. His heart rate was really low, and we, thank God we were there. We had to have a cesarean. And then when I say, well, what kind of things led up to your birth? What kind of things were at your birthday party? Frequently, what I hear is induction, water breaking, contractions forever, epidural, and ultimately cesarean. The main risk of Pitocin is contractions that are too long, too strong, and too close together. And the way that causes fetal distress is that you have to remember when your uterus is contracting, your placenta, which is what is delivering oxygen to your baby through the umbilical cord, when the uterus is in the contracted state, all of the sinuses in the placenta are shut down, so to speak. So when you're contracting, you're not transferring a lot of oxygen. When the contraction is over, the sinuses open back up, your heart pumps nice, fresh, oxygenated blood, it gets to your baby. So the rest phase of a contraction is just as important as the contraction. Mother Nature will rarely give you contractions that are too strong, too long, and too close together. And that's why you get ebbs and flows of normal oxytocin. It kind of comes and goes as you need it to keep labor going and to keep labor active.
Viewers had written into us and said that her baby's head is still pointed from where the doctor had pulled it out with forceps.
Well, I don't know. I can't say about that. Babies do get injured sometimes. I don't think anyone ever intends to injure a baby, for goodness gracious.
No.
But when you're pulling on your baby's head, this is your baby's head. There's a brain inside. Their skull isn't formed. It's very soft. I think, forceps or vacuum extractor used for the right reason in skilled hands for a short period of time can at times be a lifesaver. I mean, we have all of these things for a reason because, let's face it, it's saved a mom and or a baby's life. But it's the judicious use of interventions versus the routine use of interventions, and the family understanding all the risks and the benefits involved and being allowed to make a choice.
I think that goes back to of women being treated in a universal manner, and we're not treated on an individual
Yes.
basis. So I think that's part of the problem. I'm wondering if the mom who wrote that in, if she's still watching, or if she can or wants to, can maybe let us know a little bit about what led up to that. Was she allowed to move around? Was she laying flat on her back for pushing?
Was she allowed to push in any other position except laying on her back with her knees back by her ears?
Laying in a prone position with flat on your back with your legs up in the air, sitting like this.
Good job.
Laying down. I'm serious. This just logically doesn't seem like the right way to have a baby. Why do we still do it? Wasn't there some sort of study that was done like in the 1800s by two different people on opposite sides of the world that said that laying flat on your back was the dumbest way to have a baby?
In the late 1800s, two doctors, Felkin and Engelman, did some different studies. The other was studying more in the African areas of the country. And basically that's what they were looking at. How do women labor? And what they noticed is that women didn't lay down. And the other thing that they noticed is that the women seemed to have faster, less complicated, faster labors, less complicated labors, and seemed to be more in control of what was going on. And so their conclusions from both were that the flat on the back posture used by civilized women caused, decrease in blood pressure and problems that were not associated in any of the upright postures. So that's basically what they, what their conclusion
But that was over 100 years ago.
That was with no ultrasound. That was with no fetal monitor. That was with no pulse oximeter to measure oxygen. That was with no way to check the baby's oxygen levels at birth. This was strictly by observation, using your eyes and your hands and your ears. And the flat on the back posture, we can thank that to Dr. Robert DeLee. Now, ladies, we've done a lot of things since 1929. We can own property, we can vote, we have the right to equal pay. But why are we wanting to use a position designed by a man who, mind you, has never given birth himself, from 1929? That song, You've Come a Long Way, Baby? No, we haven't.
No, we haven't. I think we've been taking major steps backwards when it comes to birth. And we've talked about it on our show before. And if you've never watched the show before, I'm going to reiterate right now and talk about how incredibly important birth day is for both mom and baby, and what an empowering moment it can be. It can change your life, literally and figuratively. It can be empowering and amazing, or it could be scarring and devastating. And as women, I believe that we need to take this power back, that it belongs to us and it belongs to our children. If we can come out of birth feeling empowered, then we can go into motherhood in a more powerful way. And I really believe that we need to take it back, that it belongs to us, and it has for a long time. And lying flat on your back, I'm sorry, is just not the right way to have your baby. It's going to be uncomfortable for you. It's going to be very difficult for baby to get out. We don't have a mechanism inside of our body that will shoot the baby out like a cannon. It doesn't work that way. So the best way to get the baby out is to be as upright as possible.
As upright and forward-leaning as possible.
Having gravity work for you. And you hear of a lot of women tearing in labor. And a lot of that is, if you're laying flat on your back, you have a lot of pressure on your perineum, and
it's pretty much stretched out pretty far already.
Yeah, and so you're really stressing your body out. And we're going to calm down because I'm a little upset about the whole empowerment thing. And we'll be right back after these messages.